Good morning, you guys. I just want to talk to you about scene 6 of Streetcar Named Desire today. If you would grab your PDF and just get that open to page, 89, we'll start talking about the setting for Streetcar in scene 6. So looking at that, we open up to Mitch and Blanche finishing up their date at the amusement park in Lake Pontchartrain. You can see that things didn't really go that well on the date, because Blanche has been sort of exhausted from what he describes as a neurosynthetic personality. Looking that up, you can see that that's a medical condition due to an emotional disturbance. So she's kind of exhausted from what she's been dealing with inside of her mind. So she's very distracted and not really paying attention so much to Mitch as she is to what's going on there. Mitch clearly is picking up on that and is stolid and depressed. So, not a good time was had by all. Also appropriate, I want to discuss with you, is that they choose to amusement park for their first date. The fun and games there sort of bring about this sense of artificiality. It's not something that you get to experience in just everyday life, which is very fitting because Blanche kind of has that art, life that's sort of artificial. It's artificial the way she creates, what's going on in her world. Obviously, I could have said that better, but you get my point. Anyway, after they're leaving the amusement park, you can see that Blanche is trying to gauge whether or not Mitch is still interested in her after this date was a flop, and asks him if the streetcar named Desire is still grinding along the tracks at this hour. It's actually, I would call it like a euphemism for intimacy. So, are you still interested in me? Do you still feel like you're attracted to me? That's what she's really getting at there. Let's see. So we can see that it didn't go very well. We do know that toward the end of the date, Blanche does invite Mitch to come up to the apartment and have a drink with her, and she plays it off as though she wants him to have a drink and enjoy himself, but in reality we know that it's Blanche that really wants the alcohol. So we can't really believe that that's the true reason. Another thing that I wanted to point out to you on page 92 is that when she does get him up to the apartment, she wants to light candles, so she doesn't want this direct lighting. She claims that she wants to create this sort of joie de vivre, which translates to a zest for life. So she wants to create this sort of pleasant atmosphere. And of course, maybe even a romantic one, because if you light candles and you don't have the direct light on, you get kind of some warm, fuzzy feelings. I also believe that this serves another purpose for Blanche, because remember, she is awfully sensitive about her age. She is 30 years old, and she doesn't like probably what a 30-year-old is looking like at this point. I'm 30 myself, or close to 30 myself, and the wrinkles start coming in. You don't look the way you did at 20. So she doesn't want that lighting to sort of highlight those imperfections for her. So she's creating a fantasy once again. She even goes on to talk to him on page 93 that she wants him to pretend that they're bohemian and that they're on the left bank of Paris, and begins to speak French. Of course, I'm not going to do that because I would butcher it, but it sounds pretty. But she's pretending. It's almost childlike, Oh, let's imagine we're over here, and let's pretend we're in a cafe. And anyway, just trying to be something that she's not, trying to create an atmosphere that doesn't exist. So once again, Blanche in her fantasy world. Moving forward, I'm going to skip ahead to page 95. And what is significant about page 95 is that when Blanche and Mitch are having a conversation up in the apartment, it's a conversation that revolves around Mitch and how much he weighs and the fact that he works out. And, that conversation wouldn't be very stimulating for someone like Blanche. Remember, she's an English teacher. She enjoys the arts, so she likes to read, she likes music, she speaks French, probably loves artwork, and those are the things that would be interesting for her to talk about. And with a guy like Mitch, she's not going to get that. And so it kind of tells us that this relationship isn't probably going to be a good one or even work out. It also kind of shows us that Blanche is probably not a person that is truly interested in Mitch. Not probably attracted to him on the in an intellectual sense. He's pretty simple, a lot like Stanley. but yet she still pursues him. So anyway, probably ulterior motives there. Another thing that I wanted to point out was that Mitch sort of tries to make some light advances toward Blanche on page 96 and 97, but she kind of, bats him away and claims that she has these old-fashioned ideals, which, if you reflect back to what happened in the previous scene, she made advances toward a much younger boy. So we know that that's not true. She wants to paint this picture of being a prim and proper woman, which is what she said she was going to do when she was talking to Stella. She wants to deceive him enough just to make him want her, okay? So anyway, so she claims that it's because she has these old-fashioned beliefs. Let's see, moving on. We've got Blanche discussing with Mitch, like, the conditions of her living with Stanley and Stella. She says, obviously, she's not enjoying that arrangement, and she does talk about the fact that she thinks that Stanley doesn't like her, actually she says he hates her, and that why else would he try to insult her and things like that. She said from the beginning, the first time she met him, she believed that he was going to be her executioner. That's a little dramatic, so she's a little over the top in how she believes Stanley treats her. Another thing that she says is that this man will destroy me. And I don't think she's being too dramatic there. I think that there is some truth in that statement because, if we can recall, Stanley brought up something about a man named Shaw, which we know Blanche does have something to do with Shaw, and she's not revealing it. And I think that, she's probably afraid that if he did come out with the information he knows about this guy, that it would ruin her, probably by way of reputation. Okay, so that's probably not 100% wrong. Okay, going forward, we've got a couple of things. Mitch does ask Blanche about her age, which sort of takes her aback. I think she was afraid that he knew she was not as young as she says she is, but it was simply because his mom had asked about her age. So remember, there's that sensitivity, and she doesn't want to be found out that she had told a little lie. Another thing, if you look on page 102, Blanche pours herself yet another drink, and this was right after she brought up a little bit about her past with her young husband that had died. Okay, remember, she had said 1 is my limit when it comes to drinking, and then it was like 2 is my limit when it comes to drinking. Apparently, kind of forgotten what her limit was. So then after she pours herself a drink, she gets into and divulges the details of her relationship. This is pretty significant. We have a lot here to break down. So let's look at page 102. I might read a little bit more of this and then kind of, stop and talk. So just bear with me here. She said that, he was a young boy. She was a young girl. At 16, she fell in love with him. And it was just like complete love. She just fell head over heels and just sort of turned a blinder on to things that were probably obvious. And she just overlooked them because she was so madly in love with this guy. And, as time had passed, she noticed that there was something soft and tender about him, something more effeminate, which we can argue is a little more feminine in terms of qualities. And she failed to recognize that he sort of cried out to her for help, in their relationship. Of course, over time, she does walk in on him with a much older man and realizes that her husband is in fact gay. And after she sees her husband with this man, she pretends that nothing happened. They all do, actually. And remember, you gotta think back to this time period. Being gay wasn't something that was openly accepted, so they probably did want to pretend like it didn't happen because of the backlash that they would receive for being gay. So anyway, they play it off like it didn't happen. In fact, they actually all of them hang out together. And there was one specific night that she relays to Mitch about when they did hang out. So it says the 3 of them drove out to the casino. They're very drunk. They're laughing. They're having a good time. And then coincidentally, we have in the little scene directions polka music playing, and it's faint in the distance. And she says they dance the Vesuviana, which is polka music. And I don't know if you've heard the Vesuviana, but if you get a chance, maybe YouTube that, and you'll see that the music's kind of faster paced and sort of frantic. And I think that that does kind of reflect, Blanche's state mentally. So anyway, they danced as a Vesuviana, and in the middle of the dance, the boy kind of ran out of the casino, and then shots were fired. The more that she examines what had happened, the more she realized that her husband had, in fact, committed suicide. And it was because while they were on the dance floor, she, I think, probably drunkenly told him, I saw you with that older man. I know what you are, your orientation. You disgust me. So, again, this is the time period. They weren't receptive toward this sort of thing. And so the things that she said to him pushed him over the edge, and he shot himself. So, I think that Blanche is dealing with a lot regarding this situation. She's still holding on to this event. I think she's probably carrying some guilt about how she handled that situation, that resulted in his death. And, since then she kind of says that she's been living in this sort of darkness, that she doesn't have this light about her. I also want to talk a little bit about that polka music yet again. I kind of question whether or not this music was actually real or what was happening in her mind when she was relaying the events of the night. So I think that music, even being played in the quarters, so the New Orleans, I think that's a trigger for her, and it really sets her off. You can kind of see that at later times. So anyway, so she comes out with this information to Blanche, or to Mitch, which is sort of surprising because, you'd think a lot of times she wants to, keep it under wraps and not be so forthcoming, but yet she was here. So I think at this point we can continue to feel a little sorry for Blanche. I'm not saying she's a perfect person, a perfect character, but she did deal with a lot. She dealt with Belle Reve and the plantation being lost. She dealt with a lot of death from her family. She had a husband that obviously wasn't the same sexual orientation. He had committed suicide. So there's a lot of heavy here. She's got a lot of baggage that she's been carrying around. So we do probably pity her. At least I know I do. Yes, she didn't handle that situation well, but I think that it was a lot of a surprise, and, people react without thinking. So anyway, that concludes scene 6. Just let me know if you have any questions, and I will get back to you in an email. See you later.